Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour, thousands more flee northern Gaza for south. Israel's military says Hamas has lost control in north of Gaza. Essential medical supplies and medicine reach in Gaza City. Second delivery of vital aid to the hospital since the conflict begins. In sports, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan and Real Sociedad all qualify for the last 16 of the Champions League. And in cricket, New Zealand will take on Sri Lanka in the ICC World Cup match today in Bengaluru. As humanitarian situation worsens in Gaza, civilians fled from their homes carrying what little of their belongings they could in their hands. Israel launched a ground offensive operation against Hamas's terror on the edges of Al-Shati refugee camp in northern Gaza, forcing its residents to relocate to south on Wednesday. Furthermore, Palestinian media also reported clashes between terrorists and Israeli forces at the refugee camp in Gaza City. The Palestinian media also claimed that Hamas's armed wing, the Izz-ad-Din al-Qassam brigades, had destroyed an Israeli tank in the Palestinian enclave. Israel's military spokesperson, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, said that Hamas is losing its grip from northern Gaza as residents flee to south.
We saw 50,000 Gazans move from the northern Gaza Strip to the south. They are moving because they understand that Hamas has lost control in the north and that the south is safer. There is no ceasefire. We are at war with Hamas. The public under Hamas is fleeing south because they understand that Hamas is using them as human shields. There are humanitarian pauses. We are not at war with the population of Gaza. We are at war with Hamas, who is holding our people hostage.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has dismissed false rumors after reports that a proposal to release 12 hostages in exchange for a 3-day humanitarian pause is under discussion. Talking to media, Netanyahu reiterated that there will be no ceasefire without the release of hostages. He also issued a rare condemnation of West Bank settler violence. Netanyahu emphasized that Jewish extremists who attack Palestinians in the West Bank represent a small fraction of the overall Israeli population.
There will be no ceasefire without the release of our hostages. Anything else is futile. There is a tiny handful of people who do not represent this public, who take the law into their own hands. We are not prepared to tolerate it. We are not about to accept it. We will act against it in every way. This causes serious international damage to the state of Israel, and it does not represent the public. I condemn it, and we will act against it. And I know I represent all the people sitting here, the heads of the settlements in Judea and Samaria, and the people who settle in Judea and Samaria. Thank you very much.
All right, we've been joined in by our correspondent Amritpal Singh from Tel Aviv. Amrit, good morning. What do we make of Netanyahu's statement when he says that the overall security situation in Gaza will remain under the Israelis? Does he mean some kind of special kind of arrangement in the area? Help us understand this better.
Well, when Netanyahu says that he will, the overall security situation post-Hamas will remain with the Israelis, he means that Israel will have its boots on the ground. Remember, post-2005, after September 2005, the then Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon agreed to moving the Jewish settlements, 21 Jewish settlements out of Gaza. And the next year, in 2006, Hamas won the elections. So they were controlling Gaza both politically and militarily, except for the airspace and the naval space, the maritime space. though electricity and water, etc., were still controlled by Israel because Israel was supplying it into Gaza. But now he means that the forces will stay. Probably there will be some kind of an arrangement where the Palestinians, basically the Al-Fatah, could be given the political responsibility in a limited sense, but Al-Fatah is not amenable to that right now, at least. When Anthony Blinken met Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah, he had suggested a role for Al-Fatah there, but Al-Fatah clearly is not amenable to that. At the moment, it says it wants a 67 kind of situation and a two-state solution, which the Israelis agree to it. So surely, I think the military will stay. That's what he means, and also that is important because he doesn't want another, October 7th to happen. And also, he realizes that Hamas fighters cannot be eliminated in one go.
Thank you, Amrit, for joining in. As the Israel-Hamas conflict rages on, the Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt remained closed on Wednesday. The U.S. officials informed media that the crossing was shut down due to an unspecified security circumstance. They further said that they are in continuous contact with Egypt and Israel to get it reopened. The crossing acts as a crucial opening to let in Gaza and evacuations of foreign passport holders amid the ongoing conflict.
I'm just not going to parse into the specifics of the parameters, as our understanding is that its closure was because of a certain security circumstance. So our expectation is that once that circumstance is resolved, the crossing will be open at the regular intervals that it's been open, and the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza and the facilitation of foreign nationals interested in exiting will be able to do so.
A convoy carrying emergency medical supplies and medicines has reached the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City. Now, this is the second delivery of vital aid to the hospital since the conflict between Israel and Hamas escalated. In a joint statement, the UN and World Health Organization said that the quantity of supplies are far from sufficient to respond to the immense needs in the Gaza Strip. UNWRA and WHO again called for fuel to be delivered to humanitarian agencies in the Gaza Strip. Italy on Wednesday sent a hospital ship close to the coast of Gaza to help treat victims of the Israel-Hamas conflict. Italian Defense Minister said that the ship left the Italian port with 170 staff, including 30 people trained for medical emergencies. Italy is among the G7 foreign ministers that urged for humanitarian pauses in the Israel-Hamas conflict in order to facilitate the entry of aid and the hostage-taking process. On Wednesday, the Israeli Defense Forces said that they were attacking infrastructure in Lebanon controlled by Iranian-backed Hezbollah in response to the rocket launches aimed at northern Israel in the recent days. A video released by Israel's military showed several aerial shots of what it said were targets being hit near the Biraneth area of northern Israel. On Friday, Hezbollah leader Nasrallah warned Washington that avoiding a regional war depends on stopping the Israeli offensive. Since October 8th, Hezbollah has been exchanging fire with Israeli troops at the Lebanon border, the most significant escalation since the 2006 war. Members of international NGOs like Doctors Without Borders and Amnesty International were among the organizations that gathered near the Eiffel Tower in Paris on Wednesday to ask for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip to stop civilian suffering. The words "ceasefire now" were projected on walls with the Eiffel Tower as a backdrop. Doctors in Gaza have reported that patients arriving to the hospitals are exhibiting symptoms of diseases but are being brought on by overcrowding and inadequate sanitation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met his Dutch counterpart Mark Rutte on Wednesday at his office in Jerusalem. According to the Israeli government press office, Netanyahu thanked Rutte for his friendship and support that is helping Israel during the time of war. Now, this is Rutte's second visit to Israel since the beginning of the Israel-Hamas conflict. British Foreign Minister James Cleverly arrived in Saudi Arabia on Thursday to drive diplomatic efforts to find a resolution to the conflict in Gaza and southern Israel. Cleverly will meet with foreign ministers from the Middle East and will discuss efforts to prevent wider regional escalation, including in Lebanon and Yemen. He will also discuss initiatives to increase the volume of aid reaching civilians in besieged Gaza and ensure a pipeline of funds and supplies to support the relief effort. Pentagon has said that the United States conducted a second round of strikes against a weapons storage facility located in eastern Syria on Wednesday. The strikes came as tensions between the two countries continued to escalate, with at least 40 attacks on U.S. and coalition troops in both Iraq and Syria since the beginning of October. Since then, at least 45 U.S. troops have sustained traumatic brain injuries and other minor injuries. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said in a statement that the strikes, which were carried out by two F-15 fighter jets, were a response to recent attacks on American forces by Iranian proxies. All right, let's get to updates on Russia-Ukraine crisis. Now, President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Ukraine would still try to deliver battlefield results by the end of the year. He remained sure that Kyiv would eventually have success in the war despite difficulties at the front. Acknowledging the slow process and progress of Kyiv's counteroffensive in the occupied south, Zelensky also touted a Ukrainian battlefield plan for 2024.
We have planned, we have very concrete cities, very concrete directions, where we go, where we have counter-offensive. We have some slow steps forward, like you said, on the south of our country. Also, we have steps on the east, and some I think, good steps near Kherson region. And but you have. I mean that I'm sure that we will have success. It's difficult.
Meanwhile, speaking on the support that the United States has provided to Ukraine, National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said that the country has gone through 96% of the funds that it allocated for Ukraine.
Of the total funds that have been provided to Ukraine since the beginning of the war, which is in excess of $60 billion, and that's not just security assistance, that's economic and financial assistance, humanitarian assistance. We've gone through about 96% of what's left, and greater than 90% of security assistance, replenishment funds, have been expended now.
A Russian missile damaged a Liberia-flagged civilian vessel entering a Black Sea port in Odessa region on Wednesday. The Ukrainian official said that one person was killed, 3 crew members, citizens of the Philippines, and 1 port employee were injured in the attack. After pulling out of the UN brokered deal that guaranteed safe shipments of Ukrainian grain via the Black Sea, Russia has been repeatedly attacking Ukrainian port infrastructure. The vessel was supposed to transport iron ore to China. Donald Trump's daughter has distanced herself from financial documents at the heart of a civil trial in New York. Ivanka Trump took the witness stand on Wednesday, facing questions about her work at the Trump Organization. The former president of the United States is accused of inflating his wealth to secure better loans from banks. He denies any wrongdoing, calling the trial a scam. Sally Patterson gets us more.
Ivanka Trump is the 4th member of her family to take the stand here in New York City. Her brothers, Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr., faced questions of their own last week, where they basically said they left financial statements to their accountants. Ivanka repeated a similar narrative, saying she wasn't aware of having any role in preparing them. "I'm not an accountant," she told the court. Donald Trump's eldest daughter worked at the Trump Organization until 2017. Court filings claim that during her time there, Ivanka was involved in negotiating and securing financing for several properties. That includes a hotel in Washington, D.C. and golf resort near Miami. But many questions remain over emails and documents which date back more than a decade. Ivanka said she couldn't recall details within them. She was originally listed as a co-defendant in this case, but her lawyers successfully argued her involvement with the Trump Organization had passed the statute of limitations. But she was still brought in as a witness, despite trying to get out of doing so, and flew in to New York. Because she's not a defendant, though, no cameras were allowed inside the courtroom to take her picture before proceedings began. Despite attempts to distance herself from the case, prosecutors allege Ivanka was very much involved in the family company. Speaking outside the court, Attorney General Letitia James said the former president's daughter was inextricably tied to the company. Prosecutors claim the Trump organization knowingly misled lenders, inflating Donald Trump's wealth to secure favorable loans. He's called the trial politically motivated and an attempt by his political opponents to keep him out of the White House. He could be forced to fork out millions of dollars in damages and be banned from doing business in his home state. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. A short break ahead, but on the other side of the break, 5th annual US-India 2+2 ministerial dialogue to be held on 10th November in Delhi. The event to be attended by US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. Anniversary of the Kartarpur corridor between India and Pakistan today. And we tell you how Ayodhya has been illuminated ahead of Festival Diwali.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution. This series is going to tell stories of such change makers. Watch Change Makers on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti. Let's get you more updates. The upcoming 5th annual US-India 2+2 ministerial dialogue in India's national capital, New Delhi, kickstarts on 10th November. The event will be attended by US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. The dialogue takes place amid ongoing international conflicts, Ukraine-Russia and Israel-Hamas conflict, which has a bearing on strategic dynamics and global outlook of both the nations. We get you more.
India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and Minister of External Affairs Dr. S. Jaishankar will welcome US Secretary of State Antony J. Blinken and Secretary of Defence Lloyd J. Austin III for the 5th India-US 2+2 ministerial dialogue in New Delhi on 10th November 2023. As per India's External Affairs Ministry, the 2+2 will enable a high-level review of progress being made in cross-cutting aspects of defence and security cooperation, technology value chain collaborations, and people-to-people ties. The 5th edition of 2+2 will deliberate upon India-US partnership as envisioned by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Joe Biden in their discussions in June and September this year. Moreover, both sides will review regional issues and augmenting cooperation in multilateral platforms and frameworks such as the Quad. Recalling some critical deliverables in 4th India-US 2+2 ministerial dialogue held in April 2022, the discussions revolved around global partnership and Indo-Pacific cooperation, response to the worsening humanitarian crises in Ukraine, and assessing its broader implications, joint commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, innovation and resilient supply chains, climate and clean energy besides global health. Both sides welcomed the expanding cooperation between the energy sectors, acknowledging the importance of deepening collaboration in science and technology in evolving new defense domains, space and artificial intelligence. Sakal Bhatt's report for DD India.
Ahead of the 5th India-US 2+2 ministerial dialogue, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for South and Southeast Asia, Dr. Joseph H. Felter, has hailed Indo-US ties, stating that defense ministers and foreign ministers of US will have conversations with their Indo counterparts, underscoring the kind of importance US attaches to this dialogue.
But I think it's a great example of the significance and importance that both the U.S. and India placed on the relationship. The fact that our very, very busy defense ministers and foreign ministers are coming together and talk about areas where we can cooperate, it just says a lot about the importance of the U.S. and India relationship and the importance that both sides placed on that. So I think it's very encouraging. We certainly, from the U.S. perspective, want to see India become a regional power, a net security provider, assuming its natural role in the region, and the whole world benefits with a strong Indian defense.
The Ministry of Skills and Entrepreneurship was notified on 9th November 2014. The ministry celebrates this day as National Entrepreneurship Day. DD India correspondent Kriti Vadera has more on this.
National Entrepreneurship Day is to celebrate the achievements of entrepreneurs and business leaders. Inclusion of startups in the G20 New Delhi Leaders Declaration marks a historic milestone for Startup 20, an initiative of India in G20 this year.
Parcha is an AI-based healthcare startup where we are trying to assist doctors and hospitals in the entire patient journey and provide the top quality medical health services to even the remotest corner of the country.
So Road Vision is an AI solution for road infrastructure, right? What we do is we use artificial intelligence to maintain road infrastructure. So say whenever there is even the smallest crack on the road, right, we can automatically capture that using a mobile phone-based application.
The phenomenal progress of recent years demonstrates India as a favorable destination for startups. India has drawn entrepreneurs by providing a favorable environment for global attention and investment, resulting in a dynamic landscape of creativity and enterprise.
Our role is to help them protect what they are developing, be it technologies, be it their trademarks, be it the name that they are creating. They are spending a lot of time, they are spending a lot of effort in terms of making it happen. And we are ensuring that they are filing and protecting these trademarks or patents or copyrights or designs in India as well as in US and other countries.
By enhancing ease of doing business, reducing bureaucratic hurdles and encouraging cross-disciplinary collaboration, India can attract both domestic and foreign talents.
India has the potential to set a deep benchmark in global economy with its AI and tech services. India has the possibility to produce its own AI factories, and with their innovative ideas, Indian startups can come from backside of the stage to be the frontliners in leading the world of innovation. With camera person Alok, I am Kriti Vadera, reporting from New Delhi for DD India.
4 years ago on this day, the Kartarpur corridor between India and Pakistan was inaugurated, allowing devotees to visit the Gurdwara Sahib on the other side of the border. Founder of the Sikh faith, Guru Nanak Dev Ji travelled through many countries, spreading the message of universal peace, harmony and love before finally arriving in Kartarpur in 1521. Jessica Taneja has more on this.
The founder of Sikhism, Guru Nanak Dev, spent the last 18 years of his life here in Pakistan's Kartarpur district. This is the sacred ground where Guru Nanak Dev set up the first Sikh community, laid down the ethical principles, and handpicked the second Guru for the newly established religious faith. For more than 70 years, pilgrims could view Kartarpur Sahib only through a telescope lens. 4 years ago, an international human corridor was inaugurated, allowing Indian pilgrims to cross over into Pakistan visa-free.
9 नवंबर ही वो तारीख थी जब बर्लिन की दीवार गिरी थी। दो विपरीत धाराओं ने एकजुट होकर नया संकल्प लिया था। आज 9 नवंबर को करतारपुर साहिब कॉरिडोर की शुरुआत हुई है। इसमें भारत का भी सहयोग रहा है, पाकिस्तान का भी।
Despite decades of growing tensions between the two nations, this initiative sent out a message of peace, which would eventually lead to better ties in the future. Today, the Kartarpur Sahib corridor holds great significance, not just for Sikhs and Hindus, but also for Muslims who were equally devoted to Guru Nanak Dev. Jessica Taneja for DD India.
A grand Diwali celebration event was organized at the Etisalat Academy in Dubai. The Friends of India hosted the event with the name Deepavali Utsav 2023. The celebration drew an unprecedented crowd of 10,000 attendees, primarily families, all uniting under the theme of unity in diversity. The event featured live performances by renowned artists representing various languages, alongside traditional Indian games and folk dance performances from over 15 states. The ceremony was graced by Bollywood actor John Abraham, musical maestro Stephen Devasi and many others. Over the past decade, the Deepavali Utsav celebrations in the UAE have grown in stature, and this year's event exceeded all previous ones. A quick look at other stories making it to the headlines from across India. University Grants Commission has announced regulations for establishment and operation of campuses by foreign universities in India. According to regulations, foreign universities can collaborate to set up campuses in India, provided they meet eligibility criteria individually. National Human Rights Commission Chairperson Justice Arun Mishra addressed the 14th International Conference of the National Human Rights Institutions at Copenhagen, Denmark. Speaking at the event, Justice Mishra stressed on cooperation to make societies more humane and civil to eradicate the menace of torture. In the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, the local police in Baramulla area has established Police Public Library to promote and support the educational activities. The move will help the students of far-flung areas and those hailing from underprivileged sections. Ayodhya city in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh is all decked up for the upcoming Diwali festival. Preparations are in full swing to illuminate the ghats of Ayodhya by lighting 2.5 million earthen lamps and create a world record this Diwali. The local volunteers have already placed the lamps at 51 ghats near the Saryu River. Lieutenant Governor of Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir inaugurated Ignite, the biggest startup festival of the state at the University of Jammu. The event was organized by Jammu University in collaboration with Jammu and Kashmir Startup Association. The event brought together various stakeholders and investors on one platform. Air quality in Delhi continues to remain in severe category as per the Central Pollution Control Board. The AQI stood at 450 in the early hours on Thursday. Authorities are also exploring the option to make artificial rain through cloud seeding for the first time in the city to tackle rising pollution. A short break ahead, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Hollywood expected back in action as the SAG-AFTRA union has finally reached a tentative agreement with the Hollywood studios. Widespread protests outside courts in Madrid against amnesty law, proposing amnesty for those involved in Catalonia's independence bid. We tell you ahead about the ill effects of El Nino phenomena on the weather across the Americas.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such change makers.
Watch Change Makers on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti. A quick relook at the top stories once again. Thousands more flee northern Gaza for south. Israel's military says Hamas has lost control in north of Gaza. Essential medical supplies and medicine reach Gaza City. Second delivery of vital aid to the hospitals since the conflict began. In sports, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan and Real Sociedad all qualify for the last 16 of the Champions League. And in cricket, New Zealand will take on Sri Lanka in the ICC World Cup match today in Bengaluru. Russian President Vladimir Putin is expected in Kazakhstan on Thursday, making his third international trip in 2023 after visiting Kyrgyzstan and China last month. The visit comes on the heels of French President's visit to Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan shares the world's longest continuous international border with Russia and is part of a customs union with Moscow via the European Economic Union. In fact, the Eurasian Economic Union. And Astana was seen helping Russia circumvent Western sanctions regime. But most recently, the country's president, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, said that his country would follow the restrictions. Dasha Charnishova has more from Moscow.
The peoples of Russia and Kazakhstan are good neighbors and loyal friends. That's the message that Russian President Vladimir Putin is sending as he goes on an official visit to Kazakhstan. In an interview with the Kazakhstanskaya Pravda newspaper, Putin reaffirmed the partnership between Moscow and Astana regardless geopolitical situation. His visit comes days after French President Emmanuel Macron visited Kazakhstan for talks with Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev on tighter political dialogue. The Kremlin said Putin's visit has nothing to do with that and says Putin and Tokayev will discuss further development of bilateral relations, concurrent regional and international problems. The two leaders are also expected to participate in the 19th Russia-Kazakhstan Inter-Regional Cooperation Forum via the video link and sign a number of agreements. Putin said in an interview that geography provides Russia and Kazakhstan with significant competitive advantages in the energy sector, in which leading Russian companies and their Kazakh partners are developing fields and establishing joint ventures to process energy resources. He said Russia is ready to assist in the gasification of Kazakhstan's northern and eastern regions in accordance with the gas cooperation roadmap signed by the Kazakh government and Russian gas giant Gazprom. If Kazakhstan decides to build its first nuclear power plant, Putin said Russia's state-owned nuclear energy company Rosatom is ready to develop a relevant project. On his part, President Tokayev said investment cooperation between Russia and Kazakhstan demonstrates the huge potential of bilateral relations. Dasha Chernyshova reporting in Moscow for DD India.
After attending the G7 meeting in Tokyo, U.S. Foreign Minister Antony Blinken is on a two-day visit to South Korea and concerns over deepening military ties between Russia and North Korea. This is his first visit to Seoul since Yoon Suk-yeol became the country's president last year. To get us more on this, DD India correspondent Andrew Wood joins us from Hong Kong. Andrew, good morning. Help us understand this visit better. This comes after Antony Blinken participated in the G7 foreign ministers meeting in Japan. Let us understand the significance of this visit first from you.
Well, back in August, there was a historic meeting between the Prime Ministers of Japan, or Prime Minister of Japan, the President of South Korea, and the American President at Camp David. And at that time, America gave what it called an ironclad guarantee of the safety of Japan and South Korea, two of its most important allies in the region. Now, Mr. Blinken has reinforced this over the past few weeks. He's now meeting, well, he's just met the National Security Advisor in South Korea, in Seoul, if he's sticking to his schedule, and he's meeting the President at the moment, and will be meeting the Foreign Minister just after lunch. So this is a very important opportunity for to make sure that Japan and South Korea are on board, that their worries are being taken seriously by America, and that they can talk about possible strategies and tactics for dealing both with North Korea, which seems to be becoming friendlier again, as you were saying, with Russia, and also China. In the past 24 hours, a senior defense delegation has gone to Moscow, and President Putin said that there'd be more cooperation with China.
All right, Andrew, on one side we have Antony Blinken in Seoul. At the same time, you tell us that a defense delegation from China has reached Russia. Spell out more details, because we've seen recently there were summit-level talks between Vladimir Putin and the North Korean leader. When we talk of North Korea and Russia, trying to strengthen their ties, how strong is this collaboration against Japan, US, South Korea? Because we've seen international condemnation for both Russia and North Korea coming together.
Well, Russia and North Korea were very close during the days of communism, when it was the Soviet Union. And they have got closer, I think, over the past year or two, along with China. Now, Russia needs ammunition, and North Korea seems to be supplying it. That's tactical. And in return, North Korea wants strategic help on things like missiles and radar and so on. I remember North Korea is getting ready to test a new missile. It tested a missile, the Hwasong-2, last month. That, in theory, that missile, and don't forget, it could, in theory, carry a nuclear warhead. That missile, that model of missile, can hit the whole of the United States, in theory. So this is something that both the United States and South Korea and China and Japan worry about. In a way, South Korea is not so worried, perhaps, about missiles, because it's next door to North Korea. If war broke out between North Korea and South Korea, remember South Korea, the capital, where nearly a quarter or more of South Koreans live, is easily within artillery range of the North Korean border. So attacks on South Korea would be very different to any attacks on America if North Korea decided to start firing its ballistic missiles.
All right, Andrew, we leave it here. Thank you for joining in with those details. And let's turn focus to other updates. US Democrats have scored significant victories in state elections, giving big boost to US President Joe Biden. As expected, abortion access was a major issue in many of the races. Nick Harper gets us details from Washington.
It was an impressive night of victories for the Democrats. In Virginia, the party flipped the state house and retained the Senate. It's a rebuke to Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin. He himself was not up for re-election, but he's been pushing hard to enact a 15-week abortion ban. With the Democrats now in control of the state legislature, that is not expected to happen. And therefore a blow to Youngkin, who's seen as a rising star in the Republican Party and a possible contender for the 2028 presidential election. In Kentucky, a deeply red Republican state, Democratic Governor Andy Beshear was re-elected. He ran on a platform that criticised his opponent's defence of the state's near-total ban on abortions. And in the state of Ohio, also a Republican stronghold, voters there enshrined abortion access into the state's constitution. That's a huge win for the pro-abortion Democratic campaigners. It shows that abortion access is a motivating factor for Democrat voters, an issue they're engaged with and willing to go to polling stations to help uphold. And it runs counter to the idea that the economy is the main issue at the top of voters' minds. It comes after the Supreme Court overturned the constitutional right to abortions last summer. It could also augur well for the Democrats in next year's elections, showing that voter turnout among Democratic voters could be high if candidates run on abortion access. And these results could prove a useful boost for President Joe Biden, who's been struggling with approval ratings and is currently trailing Donald Trump in the polls in a theoretical 2024 presidential matchup. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
The SAG-AFTRA union has reached a tentative agreement with the Hollywood studios to resolve the second of the two strikes that have rocked the entertainment industry since mid-July. The union says that the negotiators have reached a preliminary deal on a new contract with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, AMPTP, which represents Walt Disney, Netflix and other media companies. This breakthrough means that Hollywood can now ramp up to full production for the first time since May. A joint Italian-US police raid on suspected mafia members has resulted in arrest of 7 people in Italy and 10 in the US. According to a statement from Italian police, the raid was a result of 2 years of investigation into the members of infamous Gambino mafia family in New York and some of their Sicilian associates. The investigation showed the strength of the existing links between the Sicilian mafia and New York mafia, as well as the American interest in the organization of Sicilian Cosa Nostra. The Italian suspects were accused of mafia association and various other crimes, while the American suspects were accused of extortion, arson and conspiracy and bid rigging. Heavy rains from El Nino have flooded Ayola's southern Paraguay, leaving hundreds in shelters. The Parana River burst, causing flooding in 5 neighborhoods. 35,000 people were affected, with 3,700 displaced in Ayolas. Weather experts predict more storm clouds over the weekend due to the El Nino effect, which warms the Pacific Ocean and triggers extreme weather events across the Americas. Locals are navigating boats through the flooded streets. Somalia is facing worst flood of the decade, killing almost 29 people and forced more than 300,000 people to flee back their homes. Authorities have rushed to save thousands of people caught in floodwaters, which follows the region's worst drought in 40 years. Video footage showed residents straining to cross flooded streets in Baidoa, Somalia's southwest state. Hundreds of migrants blocked a highway in Chiapas, demanding permits to transit freely through Mexico. A caravan of hundreds of people blocked the highway to demand that immigration authorities grant them permits for free transit through Mexico. The migrants laid down on the road in protest and shouted slogans demanding documentation that would allow them to reach the southern border of the United States. Many migrants are fleeing poverty and political instability in their homelands, hailing from Cuba, El Salvador, Guatemala, Haiti, and Venezuela. A quick look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the world. UK's King Charles hosted a reception at Buckingham Palace in London to celebrate 60 years since the Disaster Emergencies Committee was established. Celebrities like Joanna Lumley, Adrian Lester and Tamsin Greig attended, along with British media figures like Jon Snow and Trevor McDonald. The event also featured representatives from the aid sector, including fundraisers and frontline workers. A fire at a chemical distribution plant near Shefford, Texas, started after a fork-lifted accident. The fire closed US Highway 59 between Shefford and Livingston, Texas. Rural Texas communities have been frequent sites of chemical plant explosions and fires, including fertilizer storage facility explosions in 2013 and Hurricane Harvey. Residents were advised to shelter in homes and businesses as crews extinguished the burning chemicals. Thousands rallied on Wednesday outside Spanish Socialist Party headquarters in Madrid against proposed amnesty for those involved in Catalonia's independence bid. The amnesty law, a part of negotiations between the Socialist Party and Catalan separatist parties, has sparked widespread opposition and demonstration. Bolivian devotees celebrated Day of the Dead by blessing Natita's skulls at La Paz Cemetery. This tradition, a blend of Catholic and indigenous beliefs, is often practiced by indigenous groups. The skulls were decorated with flowers, sunglasses, hats, cigars, and cocoa leaves. The visit showcased the strength of indigenous cultures in Bolivia, where the Aymara and Quechua communities are a majority. Washington has released its beloved trio of giant pandas, Mixiang, Tiantan, and their cub, Xiao Qizi, as they depart for a 19-hour journey to China. The pandas, accompanied by 3 zookeepers, were en route to a reserve in Sichuan province, where an estimated 1,800 pandas are still found. The pandas, famous for their giant panda camp, were part of a fading legacy of animal ambassadors. The remaining pandas are set to return in 2024. Pablo Picasso's 1932 painting, Femme à la Montre, sold for over $139 million at Sotheby's New York auction, making it the most valuable work of art sold globally this year. The painting was part of an estimated $400 million sale of Emily Fisher Landau's collection. The painting was the second most expensive Picasso painting to sell at the auction, behind Les Femmes d'Alga at Christie's in 2015. A quick break ahead, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. US stocks closed with minimal changes on the back of Fed's insight on future interest rates and watch treasury yields. We will tell you ahead as to who all qualify for the last 16 of the Champions League.
Swagato to West Bengal, India's cultural epicenter. West Bengal invites you to share its richness, to be united as one family with one shared vision of building a better tomorrow. Welcome to a happy place. To nature's warm embrace. Witness the power of faith. Fruits of hard work, and protectors of Mother Earth. unique in every way. Discover something new every day. A small state with big ambitions. And a bigger heart. Mizoram welcomes to love, laughter, and celebrations.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD News Hour and I'm Preeti. Quickly, let's take a look at updates from the world of business now. US stocks closed with minimal changes on Wednesday as investors analyzed Fed's remarks for insight on future interest rates and also watched Treasury yields. The S&P 500 rose 0.1%, reaching 4,382.78 points, and the Nasdaq Composite gained 0.08%, ending at 13,650.41. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 40.33 points, or it was low by 0.12%. Now, this market outcome was closely scrutinized worldwide.
Americans spend. That is one thing that we can expect and anticipate the American consumers to do. We spend. And sometimes we spend more than we should. So what we're learning is that Americans would rather dip into their savings and borrow money from the future in order to spend today, rather than to tighten their belts, right? So what we're seeing is that the savings rate, this is the latest GDP number, the savings rate actually started to fall and continued to fall throughout the year, which means that whatever the GDP contribution from consumption came from is actually on borrowed money. It wasn't on the money that people had on hand. The other thing is credit card balances are at trillions. It's at an all-time high. And the interest that that balance is earning is higher than we've seen before. So this is over 20% of interest. So ominous, yes, because we are racking up debt. Ominous, yes, because our savings cushion is getting smaller and smaller. So, you know, there are challenges coming in 2024, especially as we're expected rates to stay higher for longer.
Netflix spent $70 billion to restore the historic Egyptian theater, famous for hosting Hollywood's first film premiere a century ago. The company aimed to preserve the theater's original Egyptian revival design while updating sound and projection equipment. Netflix plans to hold premieres of its films on weekdays, while American Cinematheque will showcase classic films on weekends. The restoration was met with enthusiasm, with Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos describing it as a beautiful movie house.
It's incredible. And if you had seen the theater over the last couple of years before we were able to get in and do this work, you'd see it was showing every bit of its 100 years. And so be able to bring it back, and it's a beautiful movie house, is just an incredible point of pride for us.
Meta introduced a new policy to grapple with artificial intelligence effects on political advertising. Facebook parent Meta said that starting next year, it would require advertisers to disclose when they use artificial intelligence to alter content in political ads. In a blog post, Meta said that it would require advertisers to disclose if their altered or created ads portray real people as doing or saying something that they did not, or if they digitally produce a real-looking person that does not exist. Advertisers would also have to disclose if these ads show events that did not take place, or footage of a real event, or even depict a real event without the true image, video, or audio recording of the actual event, said the company. If artificial intelligence was used to alter an ad in a way that can mislead people, the content will not be allowed, it also added. All right, on to sports now. In sports, we talk of Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, and Real Sociedad, all qualifying for the last 16 of the Champions League. Real Madrid cruised past Sporting Braga at the Bernabeu to reach the last 16 of the Champions League. Harry Kane scored twice as Bayern Munich beat Galatasaray to reach the last 16 of the Champions League. A late penalty by Lautaro Martinez helped Inter Milan book their spot in the Champions League last 16. Real Sociedad edged closer to a place in the knockout stage of the Champions League with a comfortable 3-1 win over Benfica. On to cricket now. With Australia having sealed a semi-final spot with an epic win on Tuesday night, the race is on to grab the fourth and the last remaining berth. New Zealand will emerge as the front-runner to win this sprint if the side can post a victory over Sri Lanka at the M. Chinnaswamy Stadium on Thursday. This will take the Kiwis 2 points clear of the chasing pack, Pakistan and Afghanistan. Crucially, New Zealand holds the advantage with the best net run rate among the three teams. But the Kiwis, after starting the World Cup with 4 wins, have fallen out of track, losing their last 4 matches. On the other hand, Sri Lanka, who is out of reckoning, will play for pride. The defeat of Bangladesh a few days ago effectively ended hopes of progressing to a next stage. The win in their last league game will bring some positivity to an otherwise poor Lankan campaign. With that, we end this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.